Good evening, everyone. Um, should we wait for 2 more minutes or should we actually start? I think we should wait for 2 more minutes. Okay.
Is Amaan has joined the system or not? Am I audible?
Yeah, hi Kapil. So he's just joining in a minute. So till then we
Okay,
have to
okay,
wait.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. No problem. Am I audible proper?
Okay, then, yeah. Yeah, you are. Okay, super. So I think we should start because the guest for today's session will be joining soon. So good evening, first of all, everyone. Okay. And today, I hope you have already submitted what you have, and if you are about to, then please make it quick. Though for today's session, we are excited to have Amaan Bhati with us. He is uh, he is a rapid UI developer and a DevRel at Keploy, and the session is for Keploy only. If you have any questions regarding Keploy, please do be interactive as much as you can, as you are already in other session as well. And a big thanks to Keploy, our official API testing partner, for supporting our builders throughout the hackathon. And now I'll just share the agenda with you real quick. First, we will actually look uh, why modern testing of why modern testing actually matters, and then Aman will walk us through Keploy itself, which is actually helpful for us, API and all. And then we will be having a rapid application development, and then API testing in practice, and then there will be a part of the session on Kubernetes native testing. And then, of course, there are some tips and tricks for you regarding the hackathon and for the future hackathons as well. And then there will be a Q&A part. So I want you to be most interactive during that part. And please keep your questions with you in within your brain and just print them out whenever the Q&A starts. All right. And please try to keep your mic and camera off until and unless we ask you to open it. Right? Okay. Did the
Yeah,
is
Aman
this
is
a
here.
guest?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hi Aman, very good
Superb.
evening.
Hi, good evening, guys. How are you guys doing? I would love to know in the chat. By the way, are we waiting for more people? Are we good to go? Am I supposed to wait for a few more minutes, I guess?
Yeah, yeah, Nandini, please.
Okay, so I think we should start because we are already recording the session. So if there is someone, because it's a weekend as well, so we will be sending the
Yeah,
recording.
I totally understand. For the people who are here on a Sunday evening, first of all, thanks a lot to you guys. Thanks to the Build in AI for India team for conducting this event. And before we get started, I would like to know the people who have joined this session. Can you guys please write down your names in the chat box so that I can maybe say hi to you? I'll also write my name. Kartike, hi Kartike, hi Heer, hi Twinkle, hi Kapil, hi Nandini. Kapil is from your team, I guess.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. I am Sharon Angel. Actually, you guys are not supposed to call me sir. You guys can call me Aman because at Keploy we prefer calling people out by their names because that is more professional. So you guys can call me Aman as well. So hi Aryan, hi Arjun. Cool. So before we get started, can I get some context on where you guys are from? Like, are you from the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, or maybe beyond that? Or even if you are from a school, that then also do let me know, because the recent session that I did, there were 3 school students, and surprisingly they were better than most of the college students as well. So yeah, if there is anyone from the school, do let me know. Second year BSc IT student, third year entering second year in college. Cool. Anyone from the final year here as well? Or are we doing maybe? Okay, people are writing entering second year. So basically, you are a first year student, right? You are a first year student. Computer science second year from it's yes. Okay. Cool then, cool then. So every session that we do revolving around Keploy, we first try to understand whom are we, referring to, who are the participants who are here to learn. So that we can frame the session accordingly. So that is why we don't really build a PPT or a slide for you to, follow along before we get started. So what we try and do is we just create an index, try to maybe give an introduction to who am I, and then we frame rest of the session based on what the audience is. If it is final year students, we would be building some very good applications that are very easy to understand, but at the same time they deal with a lot of things. But considering the fact that we have second year students here, I'll take the average as second year students. I will try to help you understand what we are doing. We'll try to do some basic things first, and then we'll try to scale it up eventually. So let's get started. Before we get started, I would like to have something in the chat. So you can write let's go in the chat so that we get started with a good energy. I'll also write it down in the chat so we get started. Cool. I see Kartike, I see Nandini, I see Twinkle, I see RNC. RNC, what is your name? I think you wrote it down in the chat as well. Sorry if I'm forgetting it. Okay, Aryan. Okay, Aryan. Let's go. Cool then. I'll quickly share my screen. Just give me a minute. Let me know if my screen is visible to you guys. Is it?
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Cool then. So I'll quickly start sharing. So don't worry, we are not going to follow along a PPT. This is just for the sake of an intro. This is just a 5 slides PPT that I am putting on here just for an intro. We are not going to make this more like a college classroom where you're just reading through a bunch of PPTs. We will try and understand things deeply. We'll try to understand things practically. I'll make sure to give you the steps so that you follow along with me. So let's get started. So we are going to learn about building modern applications faster, and to be precise, we are going to talk about rapid UI development and how to test your APIs. So in this session, we are going to talk about, just give me a minute. We are going to talk about how to do your project setup in Next.js, because we are going to be using Next.js for the UI development that we are doing in this session. We are going to understand how to make UI faster. Since I presume that this is a hackathon, right? So what problem that I've seen people face a lot in hackathons, coming from a background where I've attended a bunch of hackathons, I've also judged a few hackathons in different colleges, and I also try and support different college students, across various hackathons. So I try to understand their pain points. So what I have come across is that they are able to build their application. They are able to, put something there, but the problem is the time barrier. You don't get a lot of time to build very good things, faster. So we will try to understand how you can, use different kind of UI libraries to maybe create a very good UI for a hackathon purpose, and how to build it faster. So we'll try and understand how we can do that. Then we'll try to understand how to build reusable components, and then we'll also try to deploy it on Vercel, because this is a problem that I figured out quite a lot when we were trying to judge a few hackathons in the last few months. So what stood out in case of the participants was that there were people who actually had their project live and ready so that they can share it with people as well. So there are two parts to it. One is creating a very good impression and sharing your work. Firstly, with the judges maybe, and then the people who are evaluating you. And second is very underrated, I presume, that is building in public. So as someone who comes from an open source organization, we try and emphasize a lot on building in public. So what does building in public mean? you build something and you talk about in social media or maybe some other platform. So this is something which can actually help you, spread a word about your work. So it could be something like that. Maybe you hop on Twitter, since Twitter is quite an active space for developers to, get some opportunities. So you post about it on Twitter. You consistently do it. So you are no more looking for opportunities. You are attracting them. So I would highly try to, motivate you guys so that you guys build something, you guys deploy it and share it with people so that your work gets recognition. Because at the end of the day, I know that you built a great tool, you know that you built a good platform, but how would others know unless you talk about it? So we would also talk about that, and then we'll try and understand how to test your APIs using Keploy. I've seen people struggling a bit with API testing because you first have to understand what are APIs, then you have to understand what is API testing, and then you have to educate yourself, around how do we test our APIs, what are the things to take care of when testing APIs, which usually takes a lot of, educational overhead. So we'll try to minimize that, and I'll try and introduce you to Keploy and how you can use Keploy for your API testing part. And then we'll also talk about how you can get free credits for your application to, in order to test your APIs. So, and at the end of the session, we would also have Q&A. So I think we're good to go then. If you're good to go, can I have a bunch of let's goes in the chat? I'll also do it. Aryan says yes. Nandini says let's go. Karthike says let's go. Cool. I think we are good to go. So cool. So before we actually dive into it, let me try and maybe introduce myself. I think someone from your team has actually did it before I joined in, but I'll keep it short and to the point. So hi guys, my name is Amaan. I am a GSOC 25 mentor at Keploy. I am also a DevRel engineer at Keploy. My work mostly revolves around, building tools that can, help people out in any way possible. I try and educate people as much as I can, and I also take care of a bunch of open source projects at Keploy. So you can call me more of a person who is trying to build some, a bunch of things that can help people out, and at the same time educate people so that they can also build things that will help them as well as the community. So are we good to go? One last let's go before we get started. I promise this is the last one before we get started. Cool. I think we are good to go. Cool. So I'll quickly try and open maybe a whiteboard. I'll try and create a whiteboard so that I can explain to you what we are going to build in this session. So we are going to make a Next.js application. Where is it? I think I need to comment. So we are going to make a project. We are going to assume that, we are building this for a hackathon maybe, or maybe in a buildathon where we are trying to make a project, deploy it somewhere and share our work with people. And then we'll also try and understand how you can make UI using Next.js. And we are not going to build this, like we would do in a normal project. We are going to visualize this in a way that we are building it in an environment where we're supposed to build applications very fast. So we would first understand the project creation plus deployment. We are talking about rapid deployment here. Rapid and continuous, you can say. So what does continuous deployment mean? I've just used the word rapid and continuous deployment. Let me explain it to you in simple terms. So when you are building an application, what people usually do is that they build the entire application and then they start deploying it. Maybe once, they have this perception in their mind that I have built this application. Now it is the time to deploy it. So we are not going to follow the same. What we are going to do is we would follow continuous deployment. What is continuous deployment? When you are building the project itself, when the project is in the, let's just say, the 0th step, when you have something ready, let's just say even the boilerplate's ready, you deploy it. Why is it so? Why am I asking to deploy it? Because we would be adding things to the deployment continuously. Because at the end of the project, when you're trying to deploy a project after everything is done, you get a bunch of failures, you get a bunch of issues that you need to resolve, which might get a bit of a headache while you are actually done with the project, because now you have to deal with every part of the project in one single go. So in my opinion, it is better that you start deploying the project, you start with the deployment. So after every phase, let's just say that if I divide my project into 5 different phases, I would be able to add to the deployment 5 times, and every time I would be getting errors only of that particular phase. In this particular phase, I would have more context of the project. Why is it breaking? And I would be fixing it then and there, rather than fixing it at the end of the project where I have to deal with everything at one single go. So this is a best practice that people follow. This is something that I've seen people do at different organizations, at different hackathons in Bangalore, because I've attended a bunch of them. So is this clear to you guys? What do you think? Would you prefer in terms of development and in terms of deployment? Would you prefer doing it after the project is done, or maybe continuous deployment is the way to go? If you think continuous deployment is the way to go, I think we should write it down in the chat. Let's write down, let's go. This is one particular statement that I love to use a lot, because this brings a lot of energy to the session, to the participants. So if you're clear with the concept of continuous deployment, let's write it down in the chat. Cool. Then I think we are high on energy. Cool. So what we are going to do next is we'll create a repo on GitHub. Then we'll clone it locally, set up project, deploy on person. So this is going to be the way to go that we are going to follow, because this is more of a deployment friendly way to build a project, especially when you're doing it in a hackathon. So what I am going to do is that I'll start with the very basics first. We'll try and go to GitHub and maybe create a repository first. So let's go to GitHub. I'll try and go create a new repository. Let's name it something. I would love to have some suggestions for the name here. What should we name our project? I would love to have suggestions in the chat. Oh, you're saying we should write it down, write the name as Resco itself. That is a great idea, but I would love to see more of ideas. Any other ideas for what should we name this project? Do you think we should name it something like maybe build in AI or something? Any ideas? Your buddy. Okay, is this a project that you are building? Maybe that I want to understand the thought process behind the nomenclature. Smart AI. Okay, that is a smart nomenclature, I would say. I want creative ideas, folks. Keploy is great. Okay, that is also a good name. Okay, Akshara says build in AI for India. Okay, AI for India sounds cool. Any other suggestions? Any other suggestions, maybe? And yeah, one thing to note down here is that whoever comes up with a great name, I would give that person a shout out in the README file of this project. Build in AI for India. Okay, AI for Bharat sounds nice. AI phishing detector. Okay. Make sure that when you are giving me suggestions for the name, you have to build that project as well. Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll go with AI for Bharat for now. If you guys have any suggestions, do let me know in the chat. I can change the name of the project later as well. So I'll name it AI for Bharat. Cool. I'll just simply create a repository here. So we have a repository for our project. What I'll do next is I'll just simply open a new window in VS Code, and we'll try to clone this project locally so that we can put our project up and running on GitHub. So there are a bunch of ways you can follow to clone the repository. what I prefer is that when I open a new window, I get an option to clone Git repository. I have my GitHub connected to my VS Code so that it is, pretty fast way to do so. You can follow the same. Otherwise, you can also explore a bunch of commands to, get commands to clone the projects locally. What I'll do is I'll just simply create a new folder so that it is easier for me to keep a track of where the project folder is, so that I have memorized it in my mind, so that I don't have to look for it afterwards when we are trying to maybe get a bunch of path for the project, or maybe a specific file needs to be located. So I follow this as a best practice, that I try to visualize things and keep it in my mind so that I don't have to look inside my folder directories every time. It should be memorized in my mind. So let's name it session folder for now. Okay, cool. So I have cloned the repo locally. So you see, as you see here, we have cloned this repository locally. So what we have done till now, we have created a repo, we have cloned it locally as well. So now what we are going to do is that we would be setting up the project. So as I mentioned that we are going to make this project in Next.js. So I'll just quickly write it down for you. Set up Next.js. Cool. So what we are going to do is that we just need to run one single command to actually get started with Next.js. By the way, I would love to know, have you guys ever used Next.js in any of your projects? If yes, do let me know in the chat. And if not, what do you exactly use for front end? Is it React? Is it maybe Vue.js, or maybe Angular, or just HTML, CSS? I'm asking this because I would try and frame it according to how what is the level of your understanding of UI. I want to understand it, so that in order to make you understand it better. In case you are not really aware of Next.js, I'll try and explain you what Next.js is. So I presume that you have at least heard of Next.js. Even if not, you are aware of HTML or CSS. Even if not, you don't need any prerequisites in this case, because we are trying to build something, right? We are not just here to maybe learn the entire library or the framework. We are here to just build something so that you can have maybe a website or a UI for your application, right? So I'll give you some context about Next.js. Next.js is, a framework built on top of React. React itself is a library, and Next.js is built on top of it as a framework. I'm not really sure, is it a framework or a library? Never mind. So what React suggests to people is to use Next.js in their project. Why is it so? Because Next.js, first of all, comes up with with the idea of building UI very rapidly. It is a React framework that you can use for high quality web applications. It makes a lot of things easier for you, be it talking about client side rendering or server side rendering, or both of them combined as well. Whether you talk about creating different routes easily compared to that on React, be it the bundle size of the project. Back when we used to code in React, it used to take a lot of time compiling everything down to one all the dependencies and installing it in your project, which usually used to take 4 to 5 minutes. And the size of the project used to scale a lot. The size of the project would turn out to be a lot. And apart from that, in terms of optimization, in terms of image optimization, let's just say, or media optimization, or SEO optimization in general, you would have to do things on top of React. So what Next.js would do is that Next.js will try and solve all of these problems by default, so that you don't have to solve it by default. So for example, when we were trying to install React.js back in the past, we would need a library called as Vite.js. What it would do is that it would make the React development slightly faster. So what Next.js is going to do is that it is built as a framework that is built on top of React to make our application development faster. So we'll simply try and set up our project. So we would just simply need one command, that is npx create next app @latest. @latest basically means that you are trying to install the latest version of Next.js, and I would write dot and slash. what this is going to do is that it won't create a folder inside my project directory. It would just simply copy the name of the project folder itself, and this will become the name of our project itself. Otherwise, you would have to maybe give it a name, something like my app or whatever you're building. But this would turn out to be a project folder inside the project folder, which is not really a best practice until unless you want a different name for your project. But since we want the same name as the repository name, so what I'll do is I'll just simply click on // and enter. So, oh, okay, what is it? Next. I think I missed a colon. Yep. I think I missed a hyphen. I think we're good to go now. Okay. Cool. Then I think the best thing to do here for now is I would say we need to rename our project, because I think naming restrictions have been introduced in next year. So what I'll do is I'll just simply create a folder inside of this project itself, or maybe we can also try and rename our repository for now, because for the naming restrictions itself, I think we should name it something like AI for Bharat. So I've renamed the project. What I'll do is I'll clone it once again. Let's say new window. I'll clone the project so that we are clear with the naming conceptions itself. And why did I not proceed with the same name as earlier? Because for now it is showing errors in the installation, but there are very high chances that when I'm going to deploy the project on Vercel, we might not be able to do so. Why is it so? Because Vercel and Next.js itself follows a bunch of rules and regulations that you need to follow so that it is compatible with how Next.js is built. So make sure that you are following the naming conceptions. I'm not really sure when they introduced this, but we would trust Next.js since they are asking us to do so. So we would clone this again. Let's say I am saving it in the same session folder, since this is a different name. So we have cloned the project again. What I'll do is I'll open a new terminal again. Yep. npx create next app latest, and again the same. In order to name the project as the same as the the repo name, they would just simply use dot and slash. So it will quickly install the dependencies. It is asking us whether we want the recommended default dependencies or we want to customize it. In case you want to customize the setting, you can just simply go to no customize settings and customize it as you want. But for now, we are going to use TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind CSS, no source directory or app router. We would just simply go with the simple app router, so that we can just make the application quickly. So as you can see, in just one single installation command, in one single click, we were able to set up our application entirely. We did not need a bunch of external dependencies. For example, let's just say that if you were to install applications, initiate a project in React, it would take a lot of time. And plus, if you want to add some external dependencies, you would have to install them separately. So what happened here is, in one single command, we have our project up and running. So are you guys following me till here? If yes, do let me know in the chat. I've initiated a let's go again. Yeah, I would love to have more in the chat so that I know that you guys are following up with me as well. Cool. I see a bunch of yes. You guys are forgetting the assignment note. This is not supposed to be yes. It is supposed to be let's go. We are doing this in order to maintain the energy of the session. So yeah, I would love to see more of them in the chat while we are installing the dependencies. So as you can see, so before by the time Next.js is installing the dependencies, let's try and understand the project folder itself. So as you can see, we have a config file, we have a post CSS config file where the Tailwind CSS is defined. We have a package.json where the entire project is defined in one single JSON file, so that when I put this up in the repository, or let's just say that if I put this up in a place where people can maybe use my project or maybe build on top of it, what they would do is they would use this particular file, and to be precise, Next.js is going to use this file to install the dependencies and initiate the project in someone else's project. You can say else's machine. So what the other person would need to do is just click, just run npm install. So Next.js would use this file and try to understand, get more context of your project, and it would install the entire application in someone else's machine as well. So now we have a bunch of config files. You don't really need to know about them for now. I'll tell you the most important ones that we need for this session and for building the application. This is the app folder. What is it for? You can also call this as app directory. So everything that you see in the project is supposed to get inside this. Let's just say that if I have a website called as Keploy.io, cool. This is a website. So everything that you are going to see in the website, in the loading, in the very first page itself, is going to be inside this particular folder. So page.tsx is that one file which would contain everything about the project of the home section, you can call it, or maybe the landing page, as you can call it. So page.tsx is the default nomenclature that you should use for a particular page to show, to bring everything in one particular place. For example, let's just say that this is a section, right? What I would do is I would create a component and put this down right into page.tsx. If I get enough less goes in the chat, I'll also show you the code base of Keploy website and how we are actually doing it in a live production website, which gets almost, lakhs of visitors on a regular basis. I would also love to show you that as well, since we are also following the same process. So you would get a sneak into how we have built the Keploy website as well. Wait, I think I have it loaned locally as well. So as you see, we have the app folder here, right? As I mentioned that there is going to be an page.tsx file where we have everything. So let's just say this is the page.tsx. Wait, I'll just simply search for it. So as I mentioned earlier, everything you see here live in the website, it has to come inside this page.tsx file. So what we have done here is that we have created a bunch of components and compiled it in one single page, that is page.tsx. So as you can see, this is a component, this is a section divider component, this is some other component, and we have combined it all down into one single page.tsx file, which will eventually show you everything we have in this project. Similarly, in case of routing, what we are going to do is that we would create a page.tsx file. For example, let's just say that I have a route in the Keploy website that is called as, let's just say, regression testing. Okay, so what do we know? What do we actually mean by a route? So in the URL, if you see, Keploy.io is the domain, right? And after the slash, what we have here is the route to the next page for the other page that we are seeing here. So how do we actually create it in Next.js? It is going to be pretty simple and straightforward. That is why routing is so much easier in Next.js. What we would do is that inside the app folder itself, we would create one more folder that is called as regression testing, as we have created this here. And inside this page.tsx, we would put all of the components. Let's just say that we have this many components that we have created, right? We would combine them into one single page.tsx, and everything you see in this website is inside this one particular file. So page.tsx becomes the source of truth for everything you see on the website, right? Cool. Did you understand the concept of routing and the importance of the page.tsx file? If yes, then do let me know in the comments. Why is it taking so long to install it? If you guys are following along, do write it down in the chat box. The energy should not go down because as I try and memorize the names of the people who are following along. Is it taking so long for installing the dependencies? Okay, it is analyzing the files. Cool. And by the time it is going to maybe install the dependencies, I think there's something off with my system at this point. No worries, but we will still deploy it on the repo itself. So as you can see, I can see the changes that we have done to our projects. Our project, we have added a bunch of files that we would use in the project itself. Yep. So we are good to go there as well. I think there is something wrong with my installation right now, but you know what I did before we get started, before we started the session, I also had a test application up and running, not up and running, but installed properly, so that in case something goes wrong with the installation or maybe my system, we can use that app as well. So we can use that app for now. This is only to explain you how to actually deploy your project. So we followed the same procedure in this particular project as well. I'll show you the commands that we used. Wait. So if you see the commands that we run, I simply ran this command called as npx create next app @latest, and the same command that we did earlier. So it installed all the dependencies, as you can see here. These are all the dependencies it installed. For now, I am removing the other things that we already had. So I'm removing it for now. Let's say I remove these components because we won't get this, by default. We would have to create them. So I'll try and have the boilerplate for now itself. Cool. So I remove these files. Just to give you some context, when you run this particular command, you would get only these files. As you can see here, I'll remove the other files that are already here that you won't get in the boilerplate. So these are the few files that you would get as a boilerplate. Cool. So what I'm going to do is that I have to put this into my GitHub repository first. So let's just say that I had this repository. Where is it? Don't worry, we will name this repository as AI for Bharat once we are done deploying it. So as you can see, I created this simple repository. We are now going to put everything here in the repository now. So it has detected all the changes. But before we are adding it to the the project folder, the project repo on GitHub, we need to run this command as npm run build. So what this command is going to do is that it will combine all the dependencies, every file properly. It will read every file properly and make sure that this entire project folder and the entire project is ready for deployment. So npm run build will build the, you can say the, what do you call it, the project folder, or let's just say the entire project structure and everything that we need for the project to be live. It will combine them into one single bundle and deploy it to the you can see it the Vercel deployment. So what we are going to do is that now we'll just simply add all of these files to the repo. I'll just simply add all of them. Then we'll write a commit message. Let's say, since this is our initial commit, I'll write init initialize the project for deployment. One thing to note down here is that the best practices that I'm following here in the commit message itself, I'm using -s and -m. -m is for the commit message that you have, and -s is to actually provide your email by default for further verification that you might need, because there are chances that while deploying you might need to confirm your email for the repository as well as the project folder. So using -s usually signs me in based on what is the email that I already have. Cool. So as you can see, the build has passed. In case anything would have failed in the deployment, Next.js would tell you here after this command. But for now, we had 0 errors, so we are good to go now. So I'll just simply commit the message, and I'll just simply push to I'll just simply push to my repository. I think the repo is ready. Cool then. Were you guys able to follow till here? Or if you guys have any doubts till now, you can let me know here in the chat itself. If you don't have any doubts or you're clear with it, then just write, let's go in the chat. Cool, are we good to go? Are we good to proceed with the deployment? can we deploy our application now? Cool then. So what I'll do is I'll just simply go to vercel.com. I'll go to my Vercel dashboard. And what I'll do is I'll sign into Vercel. I'll connect it to my GitHub. Once I'm done connecting it to my GitHub, what I can do is I can just simply go to this add new button. What you would need to do is just connect your Vercel to your GitHub. It usually takes 4 to 5 minutes. That's it. Not more than that. So what I'll do is I will search for the repository that I created, right? The name of the repository was test, I guess. Yep. Yes, here we go, the test app. So what I'll do is I'll just simply click on import. Is this the app that we created? Yep, this is the app that we have created. What I'll do is I'll name it something else for now. Let's just say I name it AI for Bharat. Cool. And I'll just simply click on deploy. And if you're wondering how does Vercel actually know that, how we can deploy this project, Vercel will automatically detect what the repository is built on top of it. As I mentioned earlier, this config file or the packaged JSON file that we have here, this will tell Next.js about everything, what this application is about, what exactly are the dependencies here. So Next.js will automatically detect whether it is built on Angular, built on Astro, or just simple HTML, CSS, and so on. So we can just simply click on deploy. So Vercel will now deploy my application, and we can, as as we have already deployed our application. So every time we are doing any change to the project, all we need to do is just simply, push it to the repository. That's it. You don't need anything else. You just need to ensure that, you have pushed it to the repository, and everything would get, updated automatically in our production. So this is why I emphasized so much on having a continuous deployment setup, because at every stage of your project, you would be able to, add things to the production itself, and it will get automatically reflected on the, deployment that you have created. So as you can see, all I see is boilerplate here. Why is it so? Because I did not create something on top of it, right? So I'll try and show you how does continuous deployment actually works. So what I'll do is I'll just simply search for where exactly do we have this content in my code base. I'll just simply use Control Shift F and look for it. So we have this here, right? So what I'll do is that this is a test app for build AI, built in AI for Bharat. Cool. So I can also see this locally first, so that I just need to run this command npm run dev. This will open up a preview on my localhost, and it will give me a link to open things up on localhost. I don't think so. It is running. Yep, it is running. So we just did a small change, and it is reflecting here, right? You would see this reflecting in my localhost itself. And you would also be able to see the changes in the diff file that we have did these changes to the, this is although a very small change that we have did to our project, but you would still get it reflected. But now that I have done this change, what I'll do is I'll just simply add this change, and I'll just commit it to the repo. I'll name it something like test of continuous deployment tool, and I'll just push it to the repository. So now, ideally, what we see in the current deployment is to get started, edit this page.tsx file. But now that I have committed to the repository, so let's just say that I wanted to change something in this the deployment. After you're done building the project, it would take a lot of effort to do so. But now what I can do is that I don't have to care about the deployment anymore. All I need to do is just push my changes to the repository. Vercel will automatically detect it and update the deployment for you. So am I clear with the point here? If yes, then do let me know in the chat. If you have any doubts in terms of the deployment, do let me know in the chat itself. I will try to take up your questions here in the chat itself. Okay, I'll show you. What did I name it? Was AI for Bharat. AI for Bharat. Yep. So what I am going to show you here is that, you know, you can actually see the deployment again now. So did we change anything in the deployment? We did not. All we did was just push our changes to the GitHub repository, and the changes reflected by itself. So don't you think so that this is a much better or a better practice for faster deployment? If yes, then do let me know in the chat so that we can just quickly, try and understand how UI libraries work. We'll try to fasten things up because deployment is something that is slightly complicated for you guys. UI libraries, while part would be slightly easier to understand since it is going to be more straightforward. Deployment is something which usually people do get stuck. So we'll just quickly try and understand the next part, that is UI, working with UI libraries for rapid development. Cool. So we are done setting up the project. We are done deploying it on Vercel as well. So that now you can share it with people as well. What I'll do is I'll simply share this in the chat. Once we are done with the session, I will update this particular UI of the entire project so that you guys can also take a look at it. And I'll also try to share the code base with you and a doc that I have created for you to understand that as well. So now we are going to understand what are UI libraries. Cool. Can we connect the Java project with this? If you are building UI on top of it, yes, you can do so. If I don't think so, deploying backend directly would be that easier, but you can deploy your backend on Next.js on Vercel as well. But for that, you need to do two things. Firstly, create the backend separately in Java. Then you can try to connect it with maybe a Next.js API route could be a thing. You just simply need to create an API route and connect it with your backend, and then you can deploy the backend on Vercel. But I don't really recommend doing this on Vercel because I'm not really sure how compatible Java is with Vercel, since I have not worked a lot with Java. But you can try the approach that I suggested you for now. Which app best to connect with GitHub, sir? What kind of an app are you talking about here? Are you talking about VS Code, or are you talking about code editors? Are you talking about deployment platforms? Okay, Android application. See, I'm not really sure how Android works. I haven't worked a lot with Android, but I presume to connect with GitHub, you don't really need to specify, what what library or framework you're using. I think GitHub is compatible with almost everything at this point, because at the end of the day, let's just say that you are using Flutter or Swift. Swift is for iOS, I guess. So if you are using maybe Flutter, or let's just say if you're using React Native for app development, you will eventually build it on top of a code editor itself. So code editors by default are usually compatible with GitHub. If not, you can also use the GitHub API. It is free of cost. You just need to get an API key and you can get started with that as well. So how can we render for this, like for backend, and then connect it to your Vercel? Render for this, like for... Okay, so for backend as well, as I mentioned earlier, the way that we have created an app router in the project, right? If you can see in the project directory, we have an app router. So what you can do is just simply try and ask ChatGPT what is API route. So in API route, what happens is that just like you've created an app directory for your UI, you would have an API route, API directory for your backend. Inside that directory, you can create files for each and every API endpoint and the API route as well. So you have the entire backend and the front end in one single project, rather than creating a separate directory for front end and backend. You would have just one single source of truth, that is the API route, and you can simply deploy it on Vercel the same way that we deployed our front end as well. Okay, so I'll get back to the questions as well, but before that, I think we should get with the UI development part. So when we are building UI, let's just say I am building a page. Let's just say this is a page for my hackathon project, right? And this is supposed to be a, let's just say, a landing page. Landing page is where you try to showcase and try to address the everything that you have in the application. So it would have a bunch of sections, right? Let's just say that it would have a bunch of components. Like first of all, it might have a navbar, cool. Then it might have, let's just say, a hero section. Then it might have a testimonial section, like here. Then it might have a feature section where we have, let's just say, 3 or 4 cards, or maybe a bento grid. You never know, whatever you want to have. So when we try and define UI, what we can say is that UI for a page is a collection of components and sections. So what are components? Components could be anything like, let's just say that this is navbar, right? So we can call this as a navbar component. Navbar component. This is a section, so we can call it a hero section. But when we are talking about Next.js, everything you see, be it let's just say a section, be it a component, we call this as a component, a standalone component itself. So for example, if we were to create a hero section, what we would do is that inside our project directory, that let's just say if we have app directory, right, inside of this we would create a directory called as components. Inside of this I would have a folder, a file called as, let's just say, the component name could be hero section.tsx. Cool. So this eventually turns out to be a component, right? And if I were to use this component, what I'll do is that I'll just simply get inside the app directory. And as I mentioned, that page.tsx is the single source of truth for everything that you see in the UI. I would simply import this hero section inside this file that I have just created. It will be imported here. So what UI libraries does is that if you were to build the entire project yourself, you would do what you would do. You would create a navbar component, then a hero section component, then maybe a testimonials component, then maybe a feature section component. What UI libraries will do is that they will give these components to you that you can directly use in your application and customize it based on your theme or your project. But the massive overhead of creating these components is solved by UI libraries. You can just simply use UI libraries rather than creating these components by yourself. And the best part is that you can reuse them again and again. Let's just say that we had a component in the hero section that is, let's just say, a button. This is a button component. Let's just say that you want to use this button component here in this section as well, maybe at the bottom somewhere. So it is not really a good practice to create the button again and again, right? So what you can do is that you can just simply reuse this component at different places of your website. So we are done with 2 things. We are done understanding what are components in Next.js, how to actually use them, how to actually create them inside your project folder in the project setup. Second thing is what are reusable components and how we can use them again and again. So let's just say that if I were to, as I mentioned, let's just say that inside the app directory, I had a route called as about section. Cool. Let's just say that my website was supposed to be AI for Bharat. Cool. And inside this, I wanted an about page. So what I'll do is just, I would simply create this route inside my app directory. Cool. This is my app directory, and this would turn out to be the route that I have created for that. And inside of this particular, what do you call it, the route, we would have a page.tsx file. And everything you want to see inside this route would be inside this page.tsx file. So let's just say I wanted to see this button inside this particular route. So what I'll do is this, I'll just simply import and use button.tsx inside this file. Cool. So are we clear with components, section, reusable components, routing in Next.js, how to create different routes? If yes, then do let me know in the chat. You can just simply type let's go to maintain the energy that we are following since the beginning of the session. If yes, then do let me know. Let's go. Twinkle says let's go. Kapil says let's go. Nandini says let's go. Ved says let's go. So we are aware of what are UI libraries, right? So we can go explore a bunch of UI libraries. I'll try and name a few of them. a bunch of them are Eternity UI. This is for Next.js as well. We also have React Bits. We also have Magic UI. We also have Hero UI. I'll share the links to all of these in the chat itself. You can try Eternity UI. You can try React Bits. Don't worry, I'll show you how to use these components in the project. We'll try to make something, make use of some component directly now. But I first want you to take a look at these UI libraries so that you can also use them in your projects directly. So for now, since we are running short of time, we will try to pick up different components and use it in our project directory itself. So let's just say that this is a component's particular okay, this is a page for the components where you can pick from different components. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll maybe open up a few components that I like. What I'll do is I'll just use something that is free for now. Let's look for something for the hero section. I remember a component from this particular UI library. Okay, this one looks nice. Cool. So what we can do is these are all UI components that you can use in different sections of your website. So for now, let's just say that we want to build the hero section of our website. Okay, and the hero section is supposed to be very kind of fancy and modern. So this component kind of looks fancy, and this has a certain animation of maybe moving the tablet or the image when we are scrolling, right? So what we are going to do is that we would simply use this component in our project. So what we need to do is firstly we need to install this particular command. You can do it manually as well by maybe installing the dependencies, then creating this particular file and putting things up here, then maybe creating a folder for this particular component. But what we are going to do is, to save time, is just simply use this command to install this particular component. I'll use one more terminal here for the installation part. Okay. Cool. So what I've done is I've just simply installed this component. I just ran this command, and what Next.js is going to do is that using this command, it will install this particular UI asset in my project. So what I can do is that I can use this code. See, as you can see, this has it. This is the code for a component that we can just simply copy and use in our project folder. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll simply choose language here. I'll choose TypeScript for now. You can choose JavaScript as well. So I'll copy this. Once the installation is done, I think the installation is done. So when we install this component, right, there are two parts to it. One is the component file itself, which is inside the components folder, inside the UI particular folder. So every UI component, what is a UI component? This entire thing that you see is a UI component. So all of the UI components would get inside the UI directory inside the components folder, right? And second thing is we need to use this component inside one more component to use it on our website, right? So what I'll do is inside the components folder, I would create a file called as, let's just say, hero section.tsx. Cool. So this is going to be the hero section of our project. What I'll do is I'll just simply copy this command and paste it here. Let's see if there are some errors. Okay, there's an error with the routing. I fixed it. Cool. So what I'll do is I'll just, at the end of the day, if you are using this particular component in your project, it is eventually calling this particular function. We have named this as hero scroll demo. I'll change the name here for the sake of best practices. I'll name it hero section. Cool. So I have done this particular component ready with me. So as you can remember that, to show anything that you have on the website, you need to add it in the page directory, right? What is this issue? Okay, this is an iteration one. Cool. So what we'll do is that we'll now import this particular component inside this page.tsx file so that we can use this component here. So what I'll do is I'll remove everything and I'll simply write hero section. Cool. I have imported this directly here. If we have an error, okay, I think I forgot to save it. Yep, saving part is done. What I'll do is zero section. Good, and we'll import the zero section from components at the rate hero section. What is this error? Let me fix this quickly. So I'll just simply remove this chunk of code from here and make sure that, yep, we got a suggestion here. So what I've done is I've just simply imported this particular component from the components directory, and we had this file as hero section, right? So we'll just simply import it in the project. And now what I'll do is I'll check my localhost again. So you can see the component is here, but there is something missing. I think the image is missing. So let's just say that first I'll try to edit the component. So firstly, welcome to AI for Bharat. Cool. And then what I need to do is that I need to add an image here, since they already used an image called as linear.webp and we don't really have it here. So what I'll do is I'll maybe import an image. Let's just say this is an image that I already have. I'll put this inside the public folder. So public folder is the folder where you have all the assets, be it the images or the videos or the icons. Everything is put here. So let's just say I name it hero img.png. Cool. So what I'll do is now I'll change this image here to hero img.png and I'll save it. So now, as you can see, we have a hero section ready for ourselves. Welcome to AI for Bharat, and it also has an animation which has an image as well, and it is responsive as well. So if you were to build this particular asset, or let's just say the component, you would have to firstly build the entire component in Next.js, write down the code for it by yourself, then create the animation, and then make sure that it is responsive for the mobile as well, right? So in this case, we didn't have to do that, and it automatically, added the particular component for me in the page itself. Cool. So are we clear with this part? If yes, then do let me know. Sir, for making the AI agent project, that what I can use front end as Next.js as back end as. Okay, so Sansu is asking a question for his project. I think it is that I want to make an AI agent project. Can I use front end as Next.js and back end as Spring Boot? You can definitely do that. What you need to do is that you first create a separate backend for the project in Spring Boot. You define the schema properly. You define the endpoints properly. And what you can do in the front end in Next.js is that you can just simply call the API or the endpoint, right? So that you are dividing it into two parts. One is calling from the front end, and second is having a separate backend for the same. Cool. Are we clear till now? Are we sure that how we can use UI libraries and UI components in our particular project? What we can also do here is that maybe explore a bunch of components using different UI libraries, try and combine them in one single, what do you call it? One single component file, or maybe one single page. So maybe I could just simply use this UI component, maybe this UI component, and just simply add it to my page.tsx one after the other based on the sequence that we have. Cool. So are we clear till now? Are we good to move to some other important things? Maybe try and understand how you can do API testing. Are we good to go? Aryan, do let me know if I'm missing out on something, or maybe I missed out on the top, maybe. Or are we good to go to the next one?
Actually, there was a question that I personally answered, that for Java using render, because I have used it for other languages, so that's why I just answered casually. Not
Okay.
sure about Java, so he's just asking that render for backend of Java and then Vercel for front end.
Yeah, that totally works. You can do it using two ways. I'll tell you a best practice here actually. Let's just say that you deployed your Java application on render, right? You have an API for that. You have an API endpoint. So what you will do is that you will first test the API endpoint, right? If it is working fine, uh, you just uh, you just simply call it on the front end. If the API is working properly, the front end would simply call it, uh, and you can do one thing. You can, in the environment variables of the project, you can maybe name this as, maybe let's just say, backend API, and add the API endpoint there. And now you're calling the API endpoint from the front end. So now you have to design the front end based on the backend that you have created. For example, let's just say that from the backend, you are getting a JSON response in which you have a username, you have, let's just say, a response and a message. So on the front end, you need to first call the API and then define these three, how these three things that you're getting from the JSON from the backend would look like in the front end. So now you are defining the front end for it. I hope I was clear here. If not, then do let me know. Sir, can you give this recording future use to build next year's project? I think this is
Yeah,
something in AI for
it's
India.
recorded, so we'll share that. Yeah.
Yeah, that also works. What I have done is that I've created a doc for you guys as well. This contains the, all these steps and basics that you need to know for the session that we have taken. And I've also created a prompt for you in case you get stuck with installations or maybe building of, what do you call it, building of components and using them. You can use this prompt for maybe Cloud Code or maybe Codex or any other AI that you're using. And I've also created one more prompt, that is that, for example, let's just say that these components are all of different UI, different colors, different text, and all right. So I've created a theme prompt as well. I have only defined the theme of Keploy here, but you can, following the same format, following the same, the steps, you can define the theme for your website only once, give it to Claude or ChatGPT, and every other component that you have in your project folder, it will even, automatically turn it into a reusable component in your theme. We are using the same in our our project folder itself. This is the Keploy website ka code base. So these are all UI components that we have created. See, these are the UI components that we have created, and we are eventually using them in different components and then simply using them inside the pages. So I hope, seeing what I have covered, I hope you understand that this is literally the same project folder and the same practice that people follow in production websites. I'm not talking about some random production website. We are talking about the Keploy.io website itself. And for context, I can assure you that it gets visited by at least 15 to 20 lakh users on a monthly basis. So I hope I was able to give you production insights as well. So are we good till here? Do we want to know about Keploy as well? Do we want to know about what Keploy does? How can we test APIs using Keploy as well? If yes, then can you please write "let's go" in the chat, or maybe Keploy is amazing in the chat. I know you are not aware of what Keploy is till now, but I can assure you that you are going to love it, because API testing is a pain point to me as well, and I personally use Keploy as well. Cool. No one is writing Keploy is amazing. No worries. I'll show you a demo. Then maybe we can have it. Maybe. I think पहले इस्तेमाल करो फिर विश्वास करो is actually a banger of a quote that we got from the advertising industry. So let's talk about API testing first. First, try and understand what API testing is. Let's just say that you are creating a backend application. Okay, this is my backend. Okay, and inside of this backend, I have a few things. Let's just say I have deployed this. I'm calling this backend as, let's just say, Instagram.com. Okay, Instagram.com. Inside of this, I have a bunch of endpoints. Let's just say I have a login endpoint. Then I have a sign in endpoint. Then I have a change password endpoint. Or in case you don't know what an endpoint is, I'll tell you. So this is my entire backend. I can call this as an API. Cool. I have defined all of my backend inside this API. Let's just say that if I try to reach this API, it will call my backend. Inside the backend, there would be a bunch of functions. That these bunch of functions are defined to, let's just say, do different set of processes. Let's just say that I have a login function. This is for login. So let's just say that if I want to make people log in, let's just say people are coming to my backend and they want to log in, they would not reach this endpoint directly. They would reach this /login endpoint. It would be something like instagram.com, which is the API, and then /login, which is the endpoint. Don't get to the nomenclature. It could be something else as well. It could be local host as well. But this is an API endpoint. So when you are building a big project, let's just say that if you are building an Instagram clone, right? So you are building a bunch of functionalities. Let's just say you're building, let's just say follow, let's just say unfollow in case your crush did not reply. And then let's just say DM could be one, then post could be one, stories could be one, right? So for each functionality, you have a function defined in the backend. You have a functionality defined in the backend. And what we call them is an API endpoint. Cool. But when you are creating such a huge application, it becomes very important that you test this entire application properly. Cool. So when we are building on scale, it is not very, not possible for us to think of every possible edge case, right? There might be people that, maybe you have defined in the login that username must only be either, let's just say, alphabets or maybe integers, but someone comes up with some unique Greek or Rome numericals that might break your login. But this is something that you are not able to think of it properly, right? So this will eventually break the functionality, right? So what API testing does is that for each endpoint or for each API, you are first going to write the test for them, and then by calling these API test, you are ensuring that each and every API and each and every endpoint is working properly. So before you actually use it on your front end to maybe make it publicly available in the production, you have to first ensure that everything is working properly. So that is why you do API testing. Cool. In API testing, there are two parts. Either you're testing the entire application, or maybe you are first trying to ensure that one particular endpoint is working properly. Then you're ensuring the other one is working properly. So to do this particular thing, you have to first think of the test cases. Okay, for login, what are the API test cases that can be there? Bad username could be one. Roman numericals in the username, bad one, could be a test case. Spaces in the username could be one test case. Let's just say wrong password could be one test case. Let's just say a weak password could be a test case as well. So if you were to think of test cases, if you were to do API testing, you would first have to think of the test cases, then the edge cases. Cool. Then write the tests and edge cases. Then test them. And if they break, fix them. Cool. So to actually perform all of these things, firstly understanding what is an API, what is an API endpoint, then how to test each one of them properly, how to write the test, what are the format to write the test on, and then maybe running the test, maybe learning some tools like Postman, and Postman could be a platform, or maybe some other platform. It usually takes at least 2 to 3 hours to get this done, right? So what Keploy does is you can just simply go to app.keploy.io. What you need to do is just simply sign in. You can sign in with GitHub. You can sign in with Google as well. I'll sign in with my GitHub for now. I'll also sign it in this browser tab. Cool. So you see this. You can actually first try to understand, what Keploy actually does. We have a documentation page for the same as well. Or you can just simply first try to understand your use case. Are you trying to test your application? Are you trying to create the test cases? If let's just say that there are two cases, you know how to write the test, right? And there could be second case where you don't know how to write tests. So what you can do is, in case you don't know how to write tests, you can just simply use the AI test generation. You can generate tests using Keploy AI. Cool. This is one. Let's just say that you are building very, very scalable applications. That is, let's just say that you are using Kubernetes for it, or maybe some other, let's just say microservices that you are calling, which revolves around deployment in Kubernetes in different pods or services. Then you can use the record replay as well. And this is something else. This is not very important for you in this use case. So what we'll do is we'll start with generate tests using Keploy AI, so that I don't have to write the test cases by myself, right? So all you need to do is you would just simply need to input your API endpoint or API URL. Cool. So as we discussed here, right? Let's just say that someone built an API on render and deployed it, right? So what I can do is I can just simply put the API here, or maybe the API endpoint as well. It could be local API or deployed API as well. So what I'll do is I'll just simply put it here, and then let's just say I'm putting something like github.com/login for now. Okay. Then what I'll do is I'll choose an input method as well. Headers, body. Well, then I'll just simply click on send. So what will happen here is that this becomes my API endpoint that I'm supposed to be testing. In case you want to add more details to it, maybe headers, body, and authentication or authorization, anything you want in general, you can just simply use this, right? Now, when you are building backend, you need a bunch of curl commands, right? Curl commands are simply commands that you use to simply call your APIs, right? You can generate them using ChatGPT, or maybe you can just simply use the curl response that we generated for you, and you just simply need to put it here. Once you put your curl commands there, you can just simply click on generate tests. You can just simply click on generate API test. Okay, but the more of the context you provide, let's just say for now I only added the curls, and the confidence score was only 10%, which is fine for now. Even without that as well, we could have just had enough of context and confidence. So in case you want to add more context, maybe you can add more curl commands so that it has a better understanding of the API that you're creating. So you can also add a schema document. You can also add your Postman collections, and just simply click on generate test, and it will start generating the API test for you. Let's just say that this is an API endpoint. Okay, this is invalid curl command. I don't really have an application in hand for now. What I'll do is, let me check if I have an application for you to show. Let's try and test an application. I'll try and show you how are the tests generated and what kind of tests are getting generated. What do you see when you actually generate tests? Let's just say that I generated test for an API endpoint that I've created, right? And then let's just see if I go to test seat. So after you are done running, clicking on the generate API test, you would get a bunch of API tests. For example, let's just say that this is a test for checking the status of the cluster. Let's just say we intentionally skip HTML and non-JSON response as they cannot validate. So what Keploy did was it created a test case, and it also marked it as buggy, and then it also told me the AI confidence score that, see, you created this particular endpoint, but there is something off with it, and it will tell you the reason behind it as well. And as you can see, it will also try to create the test case for you. So when I am creating a test case, what usually people do is, or other tools do, is that they write what do you call it, simple placeholders for the same. But what Keploy does is it will fetch your local IP address, and based on your IP address, it will create the test cases, name the test cases, and inside these test cases, it will put the test data as well. So for example, if I were in, let's just say, New Zealand, or let's just say if I were in Australia and my user base is supposed to be in Australia, so don't you think so it would be a best practice to test my application based on the user base of Australia? So the test cases and the test data generated would be based on Australian IP itself. And for each test case and each endpoint you see, you can also visualize it properly. so that you don't have to visualize it inside your head. You can just simply give the API endpoint. We would do the visualization part for you. You can also check other test cases that it created. So I would have, usually if I were to test applications, I would create these test cases by myself, right? And I might not have been able to detect these bugs by myself. But what Keploy did was, I just need to click on generate API test. It will generate the API tests, and I can just simply run these test cases. Once I'm sure that these are the test cases that I have, I can just simply run these test cases. Cool. So you will get a report of the test cases as well once we are done running it. Cool. So as you can see, three of the test cases passed. Sorry, three of the test suites got passed, and two of them got flagged as buggy. So now let's just say that in the while building the application, I had this API ready for me. Cool. But I did not test it. Now when I'm calling it in the front end, it will throw me errors. But since I have tested it by myself properly first, I will, before calling it on the front end or giving it to the production, I will firstly take a look at these issues and then try to solve them. And maybe once we are done solving, then maybe we can update the test. That I will create a new branch just like we do in GitHub. We would just simply create a branch and get new test cases and then run them simply, which you can also visualize in the dashboard as well. We have created a dashboard for you to visualize it properly. Let's just say that you've built an application, but it is very hard for you to keep a track of the endpoints that you have created and what is inside each endpoint. So you can use this to visualize as well. So as you can see, this is usually in hackathons we create small applications, but in case you are creating very big applications that scale by themselves, you can just simply use the Keploy dashboard for three use cases. First is creating the test cases and running them. Second is having good test cases, having good test data that is based on the IP of the target user that you are trying to achieve. Third is maybe a dashboard for you to visualize your application properly, to keep a track of everything and have everything in one single place. So what do you think about it now? Do you think that we would be able to test our applications rather than spending let's just say 2 to 3 hours understanding what is API testing? Don't you think so that this will eventually save us time to do API testing in let's just say 5 to 10 minutes itself? What do you think? What do you guys think? Okay, we have a Keploy is amazing. Thank you, Twinkle. Twinkle is the only one who understood the assignment. Do you think AI will eventually replace API testing engineers, or AI itself creates so many unpredictable edge cases that human testers become even more important? So this is a very controversial question actually, but in my opinion, API testing engineers are not going to get replaced. The number of API testing engineers might reduce. Let's just say that in an organization, if we had like 10 to 15 of them, now after the AI powered API testing, we would have like at least 6 or 7 of them. Why? Because we would still need them, right? Let's just say that you are building a very, very huge scale application, right? And AI ends up creating so many edge cases that might not actually be required. So you need human intervention here as well, right? To give more context, to maybe keep a track of what AI is doing. So yeah, API testing engineers are not going to get replaced, because although we ourselves are trying to solve API testing, but we also have them, right? We also have developers, engineers who are testing the APIs at the end of the day. Cool. Any other questions? If you think that this was a good solution, I'll do you one better. We can also make this process shorter as well. Let's just say that I have an application called as versal.com. I've created this application, and now I don't want to do any hard work. I don't want to put my API endpoint here. I don't want to write the curl commands here. As you can see, the curl that I gave, there was some issue in the the format. Let's just say मेरे को वो भी नहीं करना है. So what I'll do is I'll just simply use my application. I'll install a Chrome extension, Keploy's Chrome extension. I simply click on record API calls. So now I will just simply use my application as a user would use. Let's just say I am using my application. So let's just say to click when I click on show more, it is calling an API endpoint, some API endpoint that maybe the project developers have created, right? I'll just simply click this once or twice, right? And as you can see in the recorder, it has recorded 42 API calls. So I'll just simply stop recording. So as you can see, it has created 53 recorded API captured calls. Captured calls is basically client sending the request and we are getting a response back. But 48 of them were actually completed. So now what we'll do is that we would just simply click on generate tests. And now what will happen is, okay, I need to complete the setup first. Let's just say TEM designation is, let's just say software engineer. So I've completed the setup. So what will happen is, let's just say I was recording my calls here, right? So I'll just simply click on generate tests, which will redirect me to the dashboard now. And I would be able to create all of these endpoints by my own. Where did it go? Let's just say that I created them. Let's just say I use an existing app. Do I have an app here? Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll just import it from here for now. But the whole point being is that we have created an API test recorder as well. This is although in beta testing for now, but in case that you don't want to do enough hard work for going to the dashboard and giving the curl command as well, you can just simply use the test recorder, the Chrome extension. Just simply use your application as a user would do. Keploy will record these calls and turn them into test cases that you can eventually use. So what I'll do is just when I click on generate test, I'm not really sure what went wrong here, but it will redirect you to the dashboard in the test suite page where you would see all the test cases like we had here in the test suite page. So what do you think of the test recorder Chrome extension now? Do you think you would be able to save some time in API testing here? If yes, in the chat, can we have at least once? Keploy is amazing. I'll write it, don't worry. We'll get to the questionnaires now. Before that, I want a spam. I want you to understand the importance of API testing. I want you to understand that you will eventually get the credits for this platform and you will save time on API testing. Anything, once we are done with the spam, Aryan, can you make sure that we have a questionnaire as well?
Yeah, sure. At the end of the session, like how long it will take more from your end?
I think I'm done with most of the things. There's one more bunch that I wanted explain, that was about Kubernetes native testing, but I'm not really sure that we have enough time for that because it will take much more time. And I'm not really sure if it is of a use case in this particular project. The hackathon that I'm about.
So this session is around 1 hour, so we already surpassed the time
Yeah,
limit. But yeah, we can start by questionnaire. I think. I hope you don't mind in that sense.
No, I don't mind. I don't mind.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to make sure is that Keploy is amazing.
Yeah. Please, guys, like just spam here. Yeah.
We'll get to the questionnaire after that. Okay, I am also reading the questions that we had earlier. If all API tests are passing, can you confidently say an API product is production? If not, what's the biggest blind spot that API testing still can't catch? So if all the tests are passing, you are actually saying that all the test cases that you were able to think of are passing. Let's just say that I gave an example of the login, right? In a username, you only define 4 test cases that you're not allowed to put numericals, you're not allowed to put spaces, you're not allowed to put special characters. But what if in the production someone comes up with something else that you might not have thought of? So that is where test cases would come in. The edge cases would come into the picture. So the blind spots are usually that only. And one blind spot is something I can tell you is that when you're creating test cases, a lot of fields change regardless of whether your application changed or not. Let's just say that in a test case, you had JWT tokens, you had, let's just say, time sensitive fields, right? That change on every call that you're making, which will eventually make your test cases fail, and API testing won't be able to catch it because these are the changing fields. So this problem is also solved by Keploy. What Keploy will do is that the fields that are changing regardless of what the code, whether the code changed on your project or not, whether uh, anything changed in the project status or not, it will mark them as noisy, and these won't be considered as your test fields. The rest of the things, they would be counted as them. But I would suggest you to do keep a track of what do you call it, the edge cases first and the noisy fields secondly. Okay, any other questions? If Oliver is the person, can you confirm this here? If you guys have any questions regarding the session, anything that we covered or anything apart from the session as well, just don't ask me about dating advices or something like that, but anything in general that might help you eventually do very good in, especially in hackathons, or maybe building some cool stuff that you can share publicly, or maybe build something for the community itself. I would love to see them publicly available as well. Any other questions? Any other questions in general? As here is now prepared endpoints that are technically valid but semantically incorrect. What exactly do you mean by semantically incorrect? Can you be specific? Can you give me an example so that I can explain to you better?
Viraj, you can unmute yourself as well to ask
Okay,
the question.
okay, I'll do. Okay, I understood his question. So as you can, if you remember that I said you can use a bunch of curl commands, right? So in the curl commands itself, you can, try to explain all the endpoints that you have in the backend. Let's just say that I have github.com as an API, right? But I have a bunch of API endpoints. You can define it in your curl commands. You can define it in your schema document. You can define it in your Postman collections. Keploy is smart enough to understand the entire application on its own. You don't have to tell it everything. It is smart enough to detect the bugs. It is smart enough to understand what is the use case of your project, even when you don't tell everything to it. Any other questions? Any other questions in general?
Karthik, I have a question actually. If Karthik, you want to unmute yourself, it's totally fine.
Yeah. I have a question about that. Like I have used the NCP of Keploy in my project for the API testing and all. For using that, like I used my white coding platform anti-gravity for that. Like while using it, I have faced some issues using it. I have to download the VLS service, like Windows Linux service for that. So why is that? Can you explain about it? Like why we have to use WRS services on my laptop?
See, we are not currently compatible for every environment, every use case. What I'll just simply help you out here is I'll give you a Slack support that we provide. You can ping us anytime there. You can go to keploy.io/Slack. I'll make sure that you get a dedicated engineer, you get a dedicated support there to make you.
Yeah. So, sir, I have used that. I have done all the things. Like I have faced some issues back there, but I make it run and it gave me fine results. So that I was just curious to ask, like why everything is on Linux and iOS, not on Windows. That's why I asked you.
Because currently we are not very compatible to it, to be honest. We tried building it for firstly Linux and then Mac environments. We even in on our open source version that you see that we have on GitHub, we just recently came for a Windows support. So we are still working on it. In case you want let's just say, in case you want a solution for that, you can try it in a Linux environment, or maybe you can use a VM. I'm not really sure how you would access a VM, but I would suggest you once try it in Linux environment itself.
Yes, I have tried and I get the results. It's best, I guess. for API testing, I guess.
Okay, but yeah, for Windows support as well, we are still working on it, but it is, since it is not our current priority, but we would work on the Windows wala part as well. But for now, you can use Linux environment or maybe a Mac environment. But yeah, Linux does properly work.
I hope that answers your question, Karthike. Yeah, that's all I think we have so far. Yeah.
Cool. If you have any
Thanks. Yeah.
questions, in case you have any other questions, you can reach out to me on
Yeah.
Slack.
Please
And
share your email ID, Aman, so they can reach
I'll
out to you.
share.
Right?
I'll do one thing. I'll share my LinkedIn. I don't want spams over my email.
Okay.
My
No
LinkedIn
worries.
chat.
Do at your best. Yeah.
Cool,
Okay.
cool. In
Thanks,
case
thanks, Aman, for a wonderful
wait,
session
wait,
here.
wait, 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 wait,
Oh,
wait. I
sure.
want to specify one thing. In case you want support, or let's just say want to understand Keploy better, reach out to me on Slack. In case you want advice or maybe help related to anything related to maybe that might help you in the project, then you reach out to me on LinkedIn. Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it that I wanted to specify. You can continue.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Aman, for guiding fellow builders out here, and I hope they enjoyed the session a lot. I think I saw the number very constant because they learned a lot. I think this with this session, and this is the for your information as well, and for all builders, this is the longest session which we have today. So I hope like everybody get understanding how does Kepler you can integrate in your projects and how the everything works. So yeah, thank you, Aman, once again for have your time here, and yeah, looking forward.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me, folks. Special thanks to Aryan and Build in AI for India team. I would just like to call the names since we have only like 10 to 15 people. I'll try
Yeah,
to name them because I want to thank them for staying in the session and maintaining the energy. So thank you, Karthike. Thank you, Ved. Thank you, Kushi. Thank you, Vedraj. Uh, thank you, Nandini. Nandini is from the team, I guess. Wait. Thank you, Palak. Thank you, Aryan. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Twinkle. Thank you, Ved. Thank you, Vedraj. Just one last thing. Keploy is amazing. Maybe in the chat. Maybe in the chat we can have. Rest is good to go. We are good to end the call here itself. Thank you for having me, guys. Bye. Have a nice day.
thank you. So yeah, guys, I have one announcement as well. So since we are right now at the last day of our hackathon, and yeah, Ved, you are asking something? Kapil, you are here. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah, so just make sure like we have shared the Google form of final project submission, so just do at your convenience, but make it ASAP because we have deadline approaching already, and this time we will be not extension of deadline will be happening from our end. So just make sure like you submit your project ASAP, and if you're facing any sort of issues, like just ping me or anybody from team, or just put over the group, so we'll try to like get your problem solved ASAP. Okay, anything else, guys, to like if you're facing any issues? I hope your 7 day entire journey you enjoyed a lot, you learned a lot, and we'll happy to see your projects and review them. Yeah, anything, guys? I hope I'm not too fast.
Yeah, you are not. I hope they are understanding very well. There was a question actually. I hope no one missed. That should we have a you know a summary or what? I actually don't remember.
Recording will be provided all for all of the sessions. Don't worry on that behalf. Is the Google form is certificates? He will be revealing out soon once the submission will get over. You will get the certificates, don't worry, and other bonuses as well. If you want, you have other set of things like you will be getting that as well. Can we have all LinkedIn profile? I can mention out. Yeah, you can mention Amaan for this session, and you can tag us as well. I hope you are doing on a very consistent basis, like Karthike. You shout out to you. Yeah, looking forward together there. Yeah, Nandini email ID. Yeah, wait, please.
Sir, if we do not put voiceover in our video, is it okay or is it compulsory?
It's not compulsory. Like you can put over like whatever you have built it. It's just in basically you are like walking overview, like how does your platform or how does your project works, so that we get the understanding what you are building. That I
Okay.
hope that answers your question. Yeah. Anything else, guys? Yeah, Aman. I'll share this over the group as well. Please, Nani, if you can note it down.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
yeah. Kapil, anything last words to add to you over the session here? Or we'll wrap. Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you for wonderful audience here, and yeah, we'll reveal out everything soon. Just stay tuned on the group. Yeah. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye, people.
Thank you, man. Thank you, all of you.